Thank you for joining me for another episode. And this episode was probably, there is no probably, this was the most people you've ever had on the show. By far, at one time. There were, what, 7 people on the screen at one time? With technical issues? Crazy technical issues on my end. Visual technical issues that were totally last minute. And I had to, oh God, it was very frustrating. For the first part, there were people making fun of the image of me because I was like super pixelated. It looked like you were watching me through. Did you ever have grandparents that had a TV in their kitchen that was like the old shitty TV? It probably had a hanger as an antenna and pliers to change the channel. Maybe that's just me. Maybe it's you. Don't know. But I look like I was coming through that TV. So if retro was the look I was going for, it came out. But the conversation we had was a deep one. The show, we're all sellouts now. And I did a clip that I couldn't play, to be honest, because of the issues. I had to use a different browser that's not really set up for the software. I don't even want to get into it. It's making me mad thinking about it. But in the clip I made, I talk a little bit about, there's a lot of people leaving certain streaming services, mainly Spotify, because of the Neil Young Rogan situation, and people finding out the royalty rates paid to artists from Spotify. And there's a lot of artists, so I'm taking my music off, which to me is kind of interesting. It's interesting in the sense that when Viacom owned, well, they still own MTV, but when all these guys were getting ridiculous plays on MTV and even radio plays when Clear Channel owned everything, they also owned a lot of conservative talk radio as well that were beating the drums for war in Iraq in '91 and also again in 2000. So it's interesting that everybody wants to pull their music when it's a little more convenient and you've made your money and there's not really much to gain as an artist other than quote-unquote exposure. Even the major artists that are getting tens of millions of plays, the way the compensation structure works, it's not that much money. And we get into that conversation about how, historically, artists haven't really made that much money in music. There's just a short window of time where people made a ton. And what happens when everything you do has to be commodified? And do we live in a society now where we have to commodify every aspect of our lives? So it was a deep conversation. It definitely got deeper in the champagne room. You should definitely be a patron to hear the champagne room conversation for this one. That music means I've been talking too long. Wherever you're listening, there's links in the description to get to the Patreon. I am out.
Good evening, everyone, and welcome to another episode of This is Revolution Podcast. I am your host, Jason Miles, and if you are new to the show and you haven't done it already, please hit the like button, please hit the subscribe button, as we are constantly adding new programming to the channel. As a matter of fact, tomorrow night we will be doing a recap show, a reaction show. I think that's what you young people say, reaction, to the video essay that just premiered on Monday, Bill Cosby Ain't Your Daddy. And I do have to say, Pascual Robert is the one that had me change the title. It was very different. It wasn't as provocative. I won't tell you the exact words Pascual used, but he yelled at me, so I changed the title. He didn't yell at me. I made that up. But let's introduce my homie, my dog, my co-host extraordinaire. He is the man of the Mau Mau Hour. He is the Pascual Robert.
Peace and greetings to the chat. Peace and greetings to the audience. Peace and greetings, Jason Miles.
Conan, don't tell me what to do, first of all. And there's nothing I can do about it. It's just what it's going to be. So you're going to have to fucking deal with it, or all of you can eat my ass.
Rather not think about that.
Well, a lot going on here on the technical end of things that are not making me very happy. But one thing that should make all of us happy is that today is the birthday of one Mean Djene Bajalan. So if you guys haven't done it already, please wish Djene a happy birthday. Give him a shout out on Twitter. I know very quiet about his birthday. We will not be turned 40. Big 40. Officially old. It's gray hair. Places there weren't gray hair before. So happy birthday, Djene. Pascual, this is the biggest panel we've ever had, is it not?
I believe you're correct.
I invited so many people that I forgot that I invited so many people. This is back to my days of being in a band, and you invite everybody you know to the show, hoping that 5 of the 45 people you invite come out to see you. And this is one of those rare occasions that everybody returned the message. So more proof that podcasting is way better than music. And I don't know if my musician / podcasting friend would agree with me, but let's just bring in the panel. It's so long. You know our first guest as a co-host on Movie Night Extravaganza. You probably know him as a constant guest on this show. He is a personal friend, and sometimes I get the privilege to be in his band. He has a new album out, the Conan Neutron.
Platonic Reversal too, which 8 years in April, so been going quite a bit longer than a lot of shows, and still on top, if I might add. Thank you, Jason. It's a pleasure to be here. Pascual, it's been a hot minute. Good to see you.
Good to see you too, Conan.
I'm going to keep it uncharacteristically succinct because I know you got a lot of people to introduce, but thanks for having me on.
There's going to be half of the show. We brief with introductions. So usually I read your entire bio, and because
ain't no time for that.
Well, bigger than that, because of the fucking technical issue I have all that shit saved on different, and I can't anyway. So,
by the way, I thought it was a private chat. So, but you read it on air, so you know,
live because that's
okay. I get it.
If you were here right now, you'd probably just hug me and tell me to calm down.
Yeah, I would.
Do you know what moment this is? When the battery dies on either your pickup or your pedal.
Too real.
Yeah. Or there's no connection from your cable to your amp to the speaker.
Where's the hum coming from?
Yeah, that is what's going on right now.
I love the band analogies.
Suddenly, the light comes on, but no sound's coming out. Oh, okay.
Let's introduce the straight man for tonight's comedy show. You met her as the writer of a book that is all of the scuttlebutt still in left media circles. Is she the creator of the PMC? Or is she the creator of the fuss about the PMC? I don't know. I don't care. All I know is that she came on our movie show, and she's a lot of fun. Damn, the crowd's excited. She's not even on. It's Catherine Liu.
Hi. Glad to be back.
Run PMC.
Right, Run DMC would be a good soundtrack.
Run PMC. That's a T-shirt. We should make Run PMC T-shirt.
Run PMC.
Hey man,
Yeah.
that's gold. That's up there with Anglo pessimism. I think those will move.
Anglo pessimism was a classic.
Anglo
I
pessimism.
bought 2 of them for my Christmas, and they were very welcomed.
Makes a great gift.
Since we know where you work, did you wear or you have you even gone?
Oh no! I gave them as presents, Jason. I don't like to wear T-shirts with words on them. It's one of my pet peeves.
It's very foundation liberal, by the way.
Yeah, I like to say that clothing is not an inscriptable surface, but that just makes you sound like really old and grumpy. So sorry.
Well,
I will say, Catherine, I stopped wearing T-shirts when I play live, 6-7 years ago, and I don't regret the decision at all.
You mean you just go commando? You just go.
Yes.
It looks quite a bit like this, frankly. I'm
more
an
formal.
entertainer.
This is the persona that you get on stage. He doesn't mind sweating through a suit jacket. Me personally, at this point, I'm like, I just need to be halfway naked and then run back and cry.
I just want to see live music again, but I can't.
I would like to play it again. Yeah, that would be good. I think that we have good consensus here.
Catherine, I think that's too soon for all of us here. Most of us are all musicians, and you're kicking us in the testicles with a wide foot.
Oh, it's too soon. I got Omicron, so I'm not afraid. I'm gonna lick some doorknobs.
Yeah,
I got Omicron.
never too early for the lick
I'm Houston. I'm back.
Well, let's
bring
bring
it on.
The filmmaker of the crew tonight. He made a documentary some time ago about a very vibrant music scene in Athens, Georgia, that birthed bands like REM, the B-52s, Bajalan, and more. He is filmmaker and punk rocker. I'm going to give him that. Punk rocker. Bill Cody. Oh.
Hello, and first off, happy birthday, Djene. And I have to apologize. I am wearing a Pylon T-shirt tonight.
Don't apologize.
I know it was we weren't supposed to wear.
No logo. Yeah,
It's just me.
I would have gone commando. But I just want to mention I do have a sequel out to Athens, Georgia that I was just at the Northwest Film Forum watching them back to back, and this one's called Athens Inside Out 2, Red Turns into Blue, touches on political stuff, and great music though too. So
cool.
Well, our next guest is a activist and musician from the Industrial Band, formerly on IRS Records. That was, IRS Records, Conan.
yes, I do.
He is one of the many people I invited to the show tonight. poor man. Adam Shearboard of Consolidated.
Thanks for having me on. Nice to be with you all. Carry on.
Thanks for joining us. It really was one of those deals where I didn't think, for whatever reason, anyone was going to want to do a show about music.
I was recusing myself last week, and I'm happy to just listen. You all use the awesome space. I've never been on a podcast before. I'm happy to pretend that I'm still not on one. So
I was gonna say you're doing great.
Hey, we're gonna bust your podcast cherry. It's fine.
Great to be with this crowd at that event.
last but not least, another good personal friend of mine. The last show I didn't do because I was throwing the headliner's gear in the middle of the street in Albuquerque, New Mexico. This man calmed me down, and we talked to the wee hours of the morning, as we usually do whenever I get to be on the road in either Santa Fe or Albuquerque. He is a musician that's been in several successful bands. I think he even has a platinum plaque. I'm not sure. But he doesn't have platinum plaque money. That is the story of all of us musicians, right? Him and Conan are kind of actually the catalyst for this show. And their takes on the current situation with a lot of people either leaving Spotify or complaining about royalty rates, I think is very, very interesting. So I'm excited to see Pascual and Conan not debate, but have a conversation. So please welcome, from bands in this moment, Fear Factory, Divine Heresy, and now with his wife, Devil's Throne, Pascual Romero.
What's up?
Did I list off enough bands? Pascual.
Yeah. Well, it's always tough when you introduce like bands that I've been affiliated with versus bands that I was a full member in or I was a session player on. It gets to be a little muddy, but yeah, In This Moment was my biggest band. They were twice Grammy nominated. Did go gold, not platinum.
Sorry.
But,
Get off the show.
Spotify gold though, so like $30. But
that's like Italian platinum, by the way.
Yeah. So I don't know. It was, they count streaming now, so it changes the dynamic quite a bit. But yes, a little bit of experience, but not a lot of money to show for it. That's for sure.
So I made an intro clip that I can't share, but I do talk about the current situation with Neil Young leaving Spotify, basically over Joe Rogan and COVID misinformation. But one thing a lot of people didn't know about Neil Young is that he had sold the rights to about half of his music catalog to a major hedge fund corporation. And I read today, before we went on, actually right before I pressed upload to that Alice in Chains surviving members and the estates of the two members that passed away, Mike Starr and Lane Staley, just sold their rights to all of the music to two different companies. There is a big run on publishing rights for older artists.
Yeah, they come to snuff the rooster,
Here's my quick question.
I like that Pascal's like, what kind of white shit is this? Alice in Chains. By the way, I think that same thing. If you were thinking that, Pascal, you would not be wrong.
That isn't what Pascal likes. You'll be surprised.
You'll be surprised. I went to Catholic high school in New York City. That opens you up to a lot of different musical tastes.
So he's a big Van Halen, the David Lee Roth.
Love Van Halen.
Hey, Van Halen's David Lee Roth. Van Halen. That's almost objectively great if you like rock and roll.
But quick question to the panel, since especially the people that were involved in the music industry have definitely seen a huge change when it comes to developing talent and new music.
Yeah, and the fact that it just doesn't happen anymore. Is that what you're talking about?
Yeah. Do you think, how does this, and start with you, Conan, because I know you're ready to fire off on this. How does this make you feel about the idea of new music when you have these major corporations buying up all this older music and younger artists, if they are industry savvy, they're trying to create sound libraries so they can sell it off for music and television, because making the great album, I actually say it in the clip, and I don't know if Adam saw it, I say that is making the great album kind of an antiquated notion for a young artist in the day and age of overnight fame. So Conan, I'll let you.
Sure. So, I mean, I have thoughts about that.
A lot of people don't get too wordy.
No pressure. So I don't have thoughts about that myself, but I have the long-running show Conan Neutron's Protonic Reversal, which is a one-on-one music interview show where I talk to lots of people, some of which folks would know that are watching, and some of which folks would not know. But they're all important. They're all worth mentioning. And something that comes up a lot is the fact that when you put something up on the internet, like a new music of any kind, you're not just competing with what came out that week. You're competing with all music of all time. And when I say competing, I don't mean competing in terms of money. I'm talking about in terms of attention, because right now filtering is everything, and we've surrendered everything to the algorithm. That's done. That war is long since over. Like, the time to like get mad about that was years ago. So by the same token, I'm just going to come out and say it, open and volley, I'm not a shy guy. It was never sustainable to have, or found in fairness, frankly, to have the entirety of music available to you for a flat monthly fee, period, full stop. When people talk about Spotify, oh, well, you're either with Joe Rogan or with Neil Young. First of all, go to hell. Like, what are you, a kindergartner? You don't understand nuance? No, that's not true. Because if you're not on these streaming services at this point, which have replaced radio completely, myself included, as well as everything else, you're basically writing a manifesto in the woods. And I'm not saying I don't love a good manifesto. I love a good manifesto, but that's what you're doing. So when people say, hey, what streaming service should I use to replace Spotify? None of them. The entire thing, top to bottom, is not only not founded in fairness, it's founded in profiteering and sharecropping. I yield my time.
Adam, do you want to jump in on your take on the streaming?
That was great, Conan. That was amazing.
I felt the passion.
You you echo.
Yeah, I echo that for 20 years, no doubt. It makes people into musical sharecroppers, and that is absolutely where it except that there were organizations designed to fight that for decades, and it resulted in gains across society in the 20th century. With musicians don't organize. It's everybody for themselves in an era where all of the channels are promoting individual alone participation in this madness that you call all the stuff you all were just chatting about. And you can see in music, because music leads, the old robber barons and aristocrats are selling out when they can immediately. Bowie was probably one of the first people who got the big gold watch, and that was not too long ago. It was only 15 years ago. But everybody realizes that they're going to be a bluesman, a sharecropper, playing every night of their life till they die, whether it's Elton or Carlos or the rest of us. I agree with what that guy says, and I just feel like it's a great time to really improve your music, improve your mental health, and just stay away from the profiteering and the sharecropping, and enjoy teaching and learning and finding new applications for music that have always been there, but that seem to have been drowned out simply because music was so powerful, and life produced music for a century that was so inspiring that as it started to drift away, it also indicated that life was drifting away. And that's why that music sounds better every day. Even the shit you didn't like from 50, 40, 30 years ago has increasing power as power and humanity are drained out of both life and music now. So I totally agree with Conan. I just feel like I'm old. I'm older than probably all of you. And those of us who have the least amount of time want to play and enjoy the most music.
I don't know. Pascual might be older than you.
Well, I'm not.
I'm older. I'm older.
Are you older than Pascual, Catherine? No, you're not.
Yeah. I think Pascual and I are about the same age. Yeah.
I'm 53.
Yeah, I'm 56. Yeah.
Oh.
But you know what? Black don't crack. Black don't crack and Asian don't Asian.
The raisin. Raisin.
Put it on a doily hanging on the wall.
Speaking of
Black don't crack.
beautiful young men, Pascual, I know you have things to say about this as well, because you've been actually posting some incendiary material to some about the way you view profits, and I'd love to hear you chime in on this, brother.
Yeah, I mean, it's hard for me to get it all in. I don't want to take up the entire show, but I agree with what's been said so far. I think that music as a product has been devalued to a point that we need to stop trying to compete with free, and we need to figure out better ways to make and perform music and add value to it if we need to make money on it, that really don't have to do with selling the music itself. So like, I consider all my stuff, like, please get it for free. I don't want you paying for it. It really doesn't matter to me. I get a check from ASCAP once a year for like $6, and it's just not worth it. Not that I've surrendered to streaming, but it's like, if you get into my music because it's through streaming, that's fine. If you ever do catch me playing a show, which is almost never these days, but buy a shirt. But at this point, music has just been devalued completely. But really the thing we have to look at is like the lens of music as a product. In the history of humanity, it was a product for like a microsecond. It became a product in like the 1920s, and then it's been 100 years that it even existed as a thing you could really sell. Like, before that, you were the performer, you sold the experience, people came to see you, or you were paid to be in a place to perform for people. There was no such thing as a rock star. Even the most famous people, very few of them were wealthy by any stretch. Rock stars didn't even exist till the 70s, really. I mean, the 60s was like the birth of it, and then the 70s it started peaking. We just kind of happen to be born in a time where we're like, wow, we can expect that from music. But the reality is that we just caught it in a lightning flash of something that only wasn't really meant to exist. And it kind of, corrupted the view of like what you do music for. So I guess in the long run, though, all streaming sucks. All of it. Spotify's not even the worst paying. I mean, Pandora and YouTube pay less. At the end of the day, honestly, the thing that had, I don't see leaving platforms unless you leave all of them. And if you leave all of them, it gets to the point where it's like, what are you providing for access to music? Like, how much legwork are you going to put into that? So, I don't know, man. I'm just really at the point where, I think people need to stop looking at music as a product. Like, it's not a commodity. It's just it's the advertising for you, the performer, and it's what sells, you as the product, or your merch, or your, records or whatever. But, we're in a different era.
But that's what's happening right now? We're literally seeing commodities traders.
Well, it's still a commodity. It's just the commodity is taken away completely from the artist.
Well, and I think that this is the thing that's going to grow in a recession-proof economy, is going to be licensing to music is going to stay with us.
Well,
that's
Jason,
true.
I was going to say something else. I did all the reading that you sent me, and it was really chilling. But one of the things that music is not even a commodity when you have hedge funds investing in an artist's book. It's actually a financial instrument. Like, it's become more abstract than even a commodity. And that's what I just found so chilling about our present situation, is that they financialized like a musical experience. They financialized our memories.
Ooh.
Oh, yeah. And even in the live world, right? Like, look at, Live Nation. It was Clear Channel for a while. It's, what is it? What's the corporation that I heard?
Nation.
Yeah.
Oh, I don't know. There's
iHeartRadio,
some
sure.
Access, AXS,
Super
AT&T.
corporations.
It's all
Corporations.
yeah. It's all the ticket sellers, the concert promoters. They're
It's a big mob.
But hasn't this been going on for a long time in who gets the money and who doesn't? Sam and Dave never really got a dime. The writers did. But would those songs be, I mean, they're great songs, but would they be as great without them singing them? They were trying to get mechanicals for people for years, and that never happened. So you saw a lot of the great performers wouldn't get any money, even when their songs were being played 20, 30 times on regular radio. And, you know, and there's people finding ways. I mean, I live in Highland Park. I work in Highland Park. And a young lady up the street from my office, Billie Eilish, seems to be figured out how to make a lot of money in the industry. So,
and there are folks that get through, right? I mean, like look at that Lord song, right? Like it's a good tune, but like it got in. Like, and every once in a while there are these freak events. But I want to tag something, and it's I know it's hard. I don't want to dominate this conversation, but I'm Conan Neutron, so I tend to. But Pascual brought up an incredible point about merchandise, right? I actively sell merchandise. I thank you for pimping my shit, Jason. We have t-shirts and stuff too that I've been so overworked I haven't even a chance to get those up, but that brings in a good amount of revenue. That brings in way more revenue than like selling music. So that said, I worked out Forrest, who's the host of Moving Extravaganza, the other show that I'm on that I'm the co-host of, Forrest Miller. I just worked it out as a conversation, much like this, but informally, of what I had made on Spotify over the last 4 years. And let's be clear, it's not the music of Conan, Neutron, and the Secret Friends is not huge, but it's not nothing either. It's like tens of thousands of plays, right? It's kind of in that weird, like enough to get scraped for that NFT thing that I'm sure we're going to get into, but like not enough to be like a household name or anything. I worked out that in, I think it was 4 years of streaming through Spotify, through Tidal, all of the things, whatever, it worked out to an average day for Bandcamp Friday, which Bandcamp is a service where people can buy music directly from the artist and or label and provide and in that way provide direct support to the artist with no middleman whatsoever. Bandcamp takes like an infinitesimal fee, and on the first Fridays of the month, this is a pandemic thing, they stopped taking money on that day. So that was a day that incentivized people to buy music. Now, why is capitalism the answer to this? Because if you cannot tour, like I cannot tour right now, and like many, many other artists can, there's no other way to make money but on the goddamn internet. So that's, again, sorry, I'll get down off the pulpit again.
Well, let me ask this question to Adam. You know, Adam, the resident OG of the panel. Adam comes from a time where, you know, record deals were a little different than they are today. There was no streaming. There was actual radio airplay. And this is something that was kind of making me a little upset when I saw all the people that, you know, Conan and Pascual and I know personally, artists that were whining about their Spotify royalties. My first thing was, bitch, you wasn't finna get played on the radio, no way.
Yeah.
You better be lucky somebody downloading that bullshit that you put out there on Spotify, because with nobody fucking with you. And in today's day and age of corporate radio stations and playlists and not taking in unsolicited material for fear of lawsuits, ain't nobody fucking with you on the radio. So, Adam, how do you look at Spotify and these streaming services? Because it might be a little different for someone like yourself, unless you're one of those situations where you don't own the music.
Well, I do own some music, and I actually have fought for decades to get some of the rest of it back, and I don't own all of it. I come from the time where since you mentioned these time periods, it's really instructive. The usual corporate guidelines in a contract back, you know, at any time from the 70s through when I was in it in the 90s, the standard artist royalty rate was after recoup 0.125 on the dollar. That was 12.5 cents after recoup. So that was ending rapidly in the mid 90s when no one was getting, I and countless other artists on whatever marginal levels in those times who were able to be somewhat surviving for a while just dropped off, and the phone ceased to ring and the gigs dried up. And then there was another period that leads to the Spotify shit, and that was a phenomenon trying to integrate people running from the old models of CDs and albums. And I have 7 years of experience on the inside of this phenomenon. It was called CD Baby, may still be. CD Baby was one rich kid who was standing at the hemorrhage of the old music industry, and he profited mightily from it. And he was the first person that saw the flood of people at the end of the barrier to entry. The
Derek
old
Sievers.
industry, of course. What's that? Yes.
Derek Sievers
So
is
that
the
was-
guy's name. Yeah.
Yes. So that was 2002 to 2009. And people were sending music from their parents' laptops in their bedrooms. They were sending them from their former successful major label releases that they, had in old, now defunct record companies, or mostly stacks of fucking CDs in their band space or their apartment. And so we processed millions of those, throughout millions of them. The untenability of that was present all the time, but the hundreds of musicians who were dying to call themselves members of an industry and say that they existed in an industry that didn't any longer exist, they went along with the Kool-Aid, and that kept pushing people. People wanted to play live, and now the thing about it is, if you X a third of all the money that came in for music over 100 years, the recording, it's even higher than that. I'm adding merch and giving merch a higher index than it probably had, but live recorded music sold and merch, you take almost all of that away. And then what you're looking at is people are having to go backwards in history. They're doing the opposite of what happened in the whole period that Pascual talked about, where people were playing live as a way to promote their recorded music. And Conan, we're all talking about it. It's all past, and it's 25 years and counting since Napster and that phenomenon was staring everyone in the face. And the point is, it's not limited to music. It's going to happen to everything. But from 0.125 on the dollar, you know what it is now. It's 0.0 and heading inexorably to zero. And the good thing is that means we all get to play because we love it, and nobody's kidding themselves anymore. And there's an infinite amount of possibility of what to do with it now. Who love to compose or perform, those who are, used to playing on the road, stuff like that. That's going to continue to happen somehow, and it's a lovely thing. But I think, the bands, the songwriting, the performance are also fading into history. Not making any personal claim about the commitment, the love of music, the talent of any musicians. I'm just saying, because we live in different times, you ain't going to create the same fucking music or musicians that those times had. It's like
it's all balkanized now. It's completely balkanized.
Well,
There's
let
no possibility.
me ask
and
this.
The technocracy had a lot to do with that too. The technocracy speeding through those years, not just the file sharing, but people becoming accustomed to music as wallpaper, hearing music through a hole this big in the fucking phone. All of these phenomena occurred at a pace with musicians losing their moorings. And while they were losing it, the gangsters on top, they fucking cashed out before any of these rock aristocrats, and they left all the debt with the last aristocrats of the modern generation. Sorry, it is the Jays and the Beyoncés and the Taylor Swifts and some of these artists who make most of their money on appearance fees and merch.
Yep.
They're mostly holding debt. And it doesn't need to go back to that. It's not going to go back to that. And I think the good thing is we're all still here. We all can keep making music. We can continue attempting to monetize it if that's a way you think it's your only way. But you can keep playing, you can keep composing, you can keep doing the things that you never could do when you were an artist who was only composing a performance. You can fucking learn how to play music and share that, learn things you never did as an artist, because artists aren't allowed to stop and go sideways and backwards and teach and enjoy teaching and learning, because you're too busy not deviating from your model as a solvent, hopefully artist. So there's all kinds of possibilities.
Can I ask you one thing? Like, how do you pay the rent then? How do you pay for your health insurance? Like, you're talking about this really beautiful, utopic creative moment, but that's for like older people like us who've been working a long time. We've banked a certain amount of cultural capital and everything else. But for a younger person, they can't afford.
It's a tough time.
Healthcare. They can't afford their rent. They're just surviving. And how do you have a musical culture when people literally cannot make a living doing their day job and playing music at night, and only the like rich trust fund kids can be musicians?
Because rich trust fund kids are a lot of the people that you hear on the goddamn radio.
Yep. all that prohibition rock, all the popper hats and all that shit. That's all trust fund shit.
Motherfuckers.
Yeah, the metal scene is full of it.
I want to interject briefly, if you guys. I mean, I know all of you, except for Catherine, professional musicians. But one of the things that I kind of want to caution
kidding.
This conversation is that we're talking about the really bad situation we have in terms of the rate of return that we're getting from musical artists, which is true. But I think that we are really creating a false narrative if we're painting what musicians had to go through in the past as some kind of halcyon days, because one of my understandings and readings of music, particularly in the areas of Black pop culture and Black music, and not only Black music but musicians in general, is that, quite frankly, at the peak of the popularity of the music world in the 50s, 60s, 70s, the industry was controlled by organized crime and institutions that were always robbing musicians. And it was the very few and far in between that were getting their just return on investment for the work they were putting out in terms of the quality of music that they were putting into the market, and that the large normative history of even some of the best musical acts and talents that we've had in America as a society were people who basically died broke and were getting robbed by the people who were managing them and handling their money. So, I do not deny that the current manifestation of how music is accessed and acquired is horrible, but we're talking about an industry where guys like you have been getting robbed since the beginning of the industry.
And that's a great point, Pascal, because I was bonding with Jason over early punk rock, but Greg Ginn never paid those guys anything off their records, and there were lawsuits forever after that. A lot of major label people got signed and had no idea that the David Fincher video for $3 million they were going to have to pay for, or the album that they sent out to their mom they were going to get charged for. So, it's one of those things where it's a business that smart people have made money, and a lot of people have a good time and end up working someplace else in their 30s.
I want to ask this question to everybody, and even Catherine, because you do bring up an interesting point about the class of people that are actually breaking through. And there was an interesting article that Pascal had. Yes, Pascal, got to get the right pass right. Pascal had shared about the lack of younger artists in music. And when we talk about like the curation of music festivals, there's definitely younger new artists in it, and all of it's based on social media, right? How many followers do they have on this platform? How many spins do they have on Spotify? What's the magazine? I can't think of the name of the magazine that tells how many people come to see you play. Gives you the numbers for your tour dates. You know that magazine,
Billboard. I don't know. Sorry, that's recording maybe.
It's called Skip. Think of the name of the magazine, but it'll show you the numbers that you get for every show.
Stage Mom. No, that's not So I don't know, dude. I'm out of the loop.
I can't think of the name of the publication off the top of my head, but they're just going off some of these metrics to book people. But ultimately, when you look at concert tour numbers and who's generating tons of revenue, it's older artists. First and foremost, I don't know if people know how music venues work, but food and beverage is a major part of music venues. And younger artists tend to bring out younger fans. Younger fans don't make that much money.
They don't have any goddamn money. Exactly.
That's why Stagecoach used to make more than Coachella.
Yep. Thank you.
Well, so
my job doing the numbers for those festivals. And the last year I was doing numbers for Coachella, it was the year after Beyonce. And I couldn't tell you who the headliner was. I don't remember. So look that up if people care. With that year, let me finish. There was a 20% drop in revenue. Stagecoach broke records
because they buy everything and they buy the food and they pay for parking. They don't camp in the mud and they do the
360.
Yeah.
It's well, and so what I was just going to say to add on to that is that like services like Spotify reward things people already know. And it is a service designed to do that. It is not a discovery service. When it is used as something like a discovery service, it is purely in service of the same sort of payola that, as I mentioned in the chat, like what Pascual was rightly talking about, they would have called that disruption now. Is what they would have called that, which is basically like shameless profiteering and conscription to the point of practically slave labor for what you're doing. But I think it's amazing that so many people don't realize that culturally, we've been programmed not only to expect everything to be free, but to be rewarded for things we already know. Meaning, if you got in before the buzzer, you're good. Everyone else. And that's kind of what it is. And like, now that said, I do know a lot of younger artists. Why? I still tour. I mean, not in the last year and a half, I haven't, but like, I do know a lot of younger artists. So like a lot of my friend group even ends up trending younger because folks my age are like real busy, like buying houses and, having kids and such. But I think it's really interesting that we hammer into the point of like Spotify and its ilk becoming a replacement for radio, because radio is a tool of discovery. What made radio a good tool for discovery? You had that freak that had to tell you about, you got to hear this record. You got to hear, you have to hear this is the best thing ever. I'm going to play this like every hour until like everyone knows how great this band is. Well, you still have those freaks, nerds, and weirdos, but again, it's super hyper balkanized, meaning that you now are able to reach like, 12 people as your social media will allow you to have it shown to, if the algorithm deems it to be so. But other than that universal hearing the Beatles, seeing the Beatles on like was it Ed Sullivan, right? Like we don't have those moments anymore. Like Nirvana Live and Loud, we don't have those moments anymore.
No,
those are not. We have 20,000 little moments that like reach small groups of people.
Those moments are dead. So I think there's always going to be some sort of counter to the popular narrative of music. There's always going to be subgenres. And this is my opinion, and I want to know how you guys feel about this. I feel that because we are such slaves to these streaming services, we're also slaves to the algorithm that it gives our internet. So if I like Icelandic death metal, disco polka, and there's
who doesn't?
And that I think is big in that genre, and we all know that there's no real money in Icelandic death metal disco polka, but because I keep hearing this band and bands like it, now I'm creating the same type of music, and
You're creating your own feedback loop, exactly,
of this shit that I can't get out of. And unlike years prior with terrestrial radio and with things like MTV and television being kind of a thing of the past. So talking about these cultural signifiers like Fear on Saturday Night Live,
right?
You know what I mean? Rage Against the Machine getting banned from Saturday. Like all this stuff is a thing of the past.
Motorhead on the young ones, like let's not be Americanized it,
But what does that do then for the way we look at music, and then the powers that be how do they want to view music? So Pascual and I had a conversation some time ago. I will keep saying it slow, like I'm a little special, because I don't want to fuck it up. Where he had made a comment, he goes, and we had a long riff about this. He goes, "Hey, don't think that Fire Festival was an anomaly." Bless you, Dr. Lou. I saw you. Pascual, would you like to elaborate on that? Because I think the panel would love to chime in after you elaborate on this.
God, yeah. I mean, it's like that situation is bound to happen a lot now, mainly because, you know, we're looking at, to begin with, you have to be extraordinarily ambitious in your ideas of like how you put on a festival and what you're going to do. And at the same time, you have to basically, I mean, you have to overpromise, like by default. People are going to drop off, things are going to work. And like, the thing is that people are just turning festivals and music, a lot of the industry in general is like a big Ponzi scheme right now, you know, and it's like they're banking on making money now, you know, to fund themselves, and then hoping for more when, you know, when the rubber hits the road, and then, you know, hoping that will cover their debts and everything that they've already dug themselves in with deposits and things like that. And, you know, I mean, guarantees, you can't book these bands without at least half of the guarantee anymore. And so it's like, it's just, that's like the business model now. And like, yes, Live Nation and iHeartRadio have the capital to just, you know, barrel through, but like, I think we're going to see a lot of that happening in general. I think that's, even small shows are getting to that point where people are like leveraging larger bands on the hopes of a bigger turnout. Granted, now it's like, I don't even know what to say. It's COVID. So I don't even know what that looks like from a promoter standpoint, but
depressing.
Yeah, I mean, for sure. But the problem is that like, it always was, you always were making a bet when you tried to organize something, but in the past it was like you were set up to fail if you had to, and now it's like they're betting more than they have on everything, and then it turns into, you know, we need this to work so we can pay for what we've already spent, and then we need the next one to work to pay for that. And then it just turns, you know, I mean, there's people making their profits at the corporate level, but like a lot of these people are just, it's just a farce, you know, it's just, let's see if we can do this and let's bring in some names. It's like, nobody has fucking money. I mean, we really don't. Like, people are worth something. Their net worth is something, and they try to leverage that. But like, even the biggest artists, like, you know, there's not a lot of liquid behind them. I mean, they're just, I mean, and this is like what capitalism has done to music. Granted, again, like I've got a weird view of music in that I think we're back in an era that was like the 50s really. And, you know, as much as people have rose colored glasses about that era, you know, it was just labels, you know, gluing songs to, you know, 5 kids and then sending them on the road, and the kids don't make money on the songs. They just made money from showing up. And when they got done, they were, you know, broke and working at a factory or whatever. So, you know, it's at this point, I don't know. I guess I don't really remember what my original point was with Firefest, because it's been so long.
We had a whole week. First of all, I think this might have been the night we talked till like 4 a.m, and we definitely had another spin. And I wanted to get with Catherine about this. Definitely, is that we talked about that aspect, and we also talked about the aspect that there's a class basis to the way the music festivals are.
Oh yeah,
you have to have a decent amount of money, and one of the biggest dollar per head festivals is Bottle Rock in Napa. It's
shocking, right?
About 30,000 people. Coachella is about 122 a day. EDC is about 175,000 a day. which is the biggest in America that I know of at the time that I was doing numbers for music festivals. But the dollar per head at Bottle Rock was very high. All older artists.
Yeah, because it's all people fucking around with vineyards, as I say as I drink some wine. That like that's what they're doing, right? Like that's their like, hey, here's my hobby. I have my own wine label. Oh, isn't that nice? They don't have any real problems. They don't got rail bills, you know.
But what is interesting to me about the fire is that was a curated experience for a certain class of people.
Yep.
Could afford that ticket. And while I agree there's always going to be rock shows, metal shows, and punk shows and the like, Fire Festival was going to be sorry, I'm getting a phone call. For the upper crust.
Right.
The Kendall Roys of the world.
Yeah,
right?
I think I described it as like a curated music experience. What did I call it? Crap. It was like a bespoke concert. You know, it was just like you walk into the tailor and get this concert made for you. You know,
But
and
all
it's like
all of these not just Bottle Rock, but Coachella is they're luxury items. Like the thing you do but at Coachella is have a private plane fly you in from LA into Palm Springs. Then you have like your air conditioned tent. And what really strikes me about what everyone is saying, the musicians here, is there's a general devaluation of the experience of music. But at the same time, there's an inflation of the musical experience as a luxury. And it's just so perverse. And I know that it's happened before and it's happening all the time. It's the most raw form of exploitation to take like the freshness and youth out of these 5 kids, suck it dry and like throw them out on the street. And so there's something so raw about that. And I was thinking though about a question I have because I'm a critical theory nerd. You know, Theodore Adorno said like piped in music, elevator music. He said jazz because he thought jazz was all produced, but like produced music and its prevalence is the beginning of like the demand for totalitarian compliance from the populace,
right.
and that comes with devaluation of musical experience. Like when I go to this Tustin marketplace in Irvine, there is piped in music in the fucking parking lot. And I'm just like, why? And that to me is just the fact that we accept that. And they could be playing like David Bowie or Prince, even very, very softly. And that softness is just about like making it ambient, making the music like wallpaper. Like more and more music is just like wallpaper, decor, or luxury item now. And what all of you are saying is that there's this general devaluation actually of the musician as producer and musical experience, authentic musical experience, a total devaluation of it. And if I feel like if we don't figure out how to change this, we can't figure out how to change any economic or political conditions.
If I may steal a line from a great man on this very show, say it louder for the people in the back.
Well, I hate to be the one who disagrees, but
go, Bill.
Go.
Here's the thing: the pandemic has really kicked a lot of things in the teeth, whether it's small restaurants or venues or. You know, hopefully it kicked Live Nation in the teeth, but that's my personal bugaboo. But so I have this other day job when I'm not making films, and above my head there's a venue called the Lodge Room, and it's about a 500-seater, and it is a rich kid who owns it, which is why he was able to stay open all the way through the pandemic. He's opened a bit, but I would come out to my office, and you know, I live in Los Angeles, so everyone's always complaining about the unhoused, and I would see like 20 young people who looked like they were unhoused, and I'm like, "Hey, man, you can't be against the wall here next to my office," but because there was reasons for that, and they're like, "Why not? We're waiting for the show." and they would come up with some band that I had never heard of. One time it was like an industrial jam band from like Cleveland, and they were lined up for like
What is
all
that?
the way down the street, and they were from all over the place. And I'm like, really? And you know, that place was packed all the time right up until the pandemic. And there are people making money playing music out there. It is a hard time, but you know, I think when it comes back, I think a lot of people are going to be listening to music and going to shows that of bands that we haven't heard of and young bands. As far as making money on the radio, I'm not sure that ever happened anyway, like I said earlier. So at least not for a lot of people that I know. They didn't make a lot of money that way. So
A very small number of people made money on the radio, and it was for a very short amount of time. And I think the people that you hear bitch the most about it are the ones that can't pull that radio money like they used to and get those fat ass ASCAP and BMI checks like they used to. You know, let's be honest. There's some dudes, so some of us might even know them personally, that got some fat ass publishing checks back in the day. And it's that model is gone, and they're the ones that bitch the most about Spotify and shit, and that filters down to the younger artists. And it feels like younger artists are saying, well, if Trent Reznor is complaining about royalty rates, then I have a right to bitch too.
Trent complains about everything.
but by that same token, a lot of artists, such as like Buzz Osborne, Steve Albini, artists I like and respect, and yes, no, are the first ones to say like, hey, you know, if people want to like listen to it for free, let them. Like, that's the greatest discovery tool in the world. Like, that's not something that we're counting on. That goes back to Pascual's point, that, you know, it's been a lively discussion, so there's been a lot happening. But I think that's, you know, again, part of the me relating the tale earlier of like talking about Secret Friends Spotify royalties versus an average day on Bandcamp Friday, you know, 4 years versus 1 day, is that if you look at it like a replacement for radio, algorithmic though it may be, but as a discovery tool, then like it hurts less. It's not something where you're looking at it like, you know, it is still sharecropping. Let's be clear. Everyone's labor is being profited upon, but was music ever meant to be a profit center? Not really. There was this accidental historical time, not accidental. There was this historical time that it was that way. And it's important to look at that from the longer scope of history, but also important to learn that Napster terrified everyone because they were like, hey, everyone's coming in and like stealing from the store is how they looked at it. So what did that lead to? Right? That led to the iTunes store, where now we're the ones selling you the music. And then it's like, oh, no. We're going to rent you the music. You're going to pay this, feed us. You don't actually own anything, right? But we're going to provide to you all of the stuff you ever could dream of and so much more. And it's the only product you'll ever need, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. So they effectively trained. Everyone is complicit in this that uses these streaming services because the tacit complicity of using them is so important to understand how they got one over, that we have new and more exciting gatekeepers now.
Well, let me
ask. Not that the gatekeepers are gone. Gatekeepers are still there, man. They look a little different and they got an app now. That's all it is, man.
Let me ask this question to the wacky panel, and then it'll be the final question as we are approaching an hour. Thank you. First of all, thank all of you for returning my emails and agreeing. So again, this is like, you know, having a local show and you ask all your friends to come out because you know ain't nobody really coming but that one
bands on Monday.
So I want to thank all my divorcee friends that came old and new that agreed.
Still married as far as I know, but yeah.
But being that there is not just a corporate capture of people buying rights to music, and of course, owning music and owning these platforms, I believe it's 3 major labels, and one of the licensing companies that is that has 68 or 70% of the music on Spotify. Also, and Bill, you probably know about this as well. There is a corporate capture, especially on the West Coast, of buying small smaller music venues, or in smaller music venues. We were seeing it in San Francisco. I know you're seeing it in Southern California. And that's going to change the landscape of the way we see music as well. We also live in an era where everyone can be famous. When I was younger, if I liked a band a lot, like a really lot, maybe I was on a street team. That shit's dead because everybody can be a celebrity. I literally just watched, before I went on, an interesting documentary that I've been meaning to give to the patrons for free. I'm going to give it to you because I finally figured out what my HBO password is. So you guys are going to get it. For those that don't have HBO, go if you're a patron. I will put it up so you can watch it. It's called Fake Famous, where an experiment was done in LA where they actually got 3 people that had no social media presence, created fake social media presence for them so they could be Instagram celebrities. And it worked.
I love it.
Bought likes, they bought followers, they bought comments. Now, in the last, what did you say, 10 years or so, you've been able to do that in the music world, right? MySpace came along, you could buy fans or whatever the fuck it was called. People are buying fake downloads on SoundCloud.
Content farms in Ukraine.
There's crazy
rows and rows of iPhones just streaming shit nobody cares about. Yeah.
So in this, I'm trying to paint a picture of the probably a dystopian world, but it's just an overall view of where we are. And I'll start with Adam.
Thank you. Thanks for having me. I loved hearing you all and being with you all. I just wanted to say I never got a chance to respond to Catherine. So hopefully this relates to that. You said, what has to happen? And you can't just expect people, to get money in there, like they say in Spinal Tap. And all I'm saying is it's just like life. Musicians and people across all strata and every facet of their life are facing demoralization, frustration, and, dropping out of participation. And that has to start from basics. People have to communicate based on, some kind of agreed on baseline sanity, and we ain't there. So the things that apply to music totally apply economically, and everything we're crying about and hopeful about in music is just the sound of what's all, is going to be happening in life soon, because music is in front, and we have a lot to do there. But we may have to change the words, change the categories, and change the power of people and music. You have to change who we are if we're going to make music differently, and we have to live in a different kind of society if we're not going to just sit there and cry that daddy is not being fair about how the pie is cut up, because capitalism is exactly the same across society and in music, and for that whole time, as Pascual said, it's always been that way. So do it because you love it and fight for justice in it. And I don't think any of us has any delusions about, the old myths. But thanks for having me. I hope that said something about it. And I hope that said something to you, Catherine, about what you were talking about as far as what do people do now.
But my final question is painting that picture. Bill, what is the future of music?
Wow.
No pressure.
No pressure.
I think the future of music's probably a lot like the past of music, to be honest with you. I think certain people will figure out ways to make money. Some people probably don't deserve money. There's probably going to be a lot of, I watch these drill rappers and these, they're all signing with Atlantic, and they're basically not, they know they're going to get the money back by, the kids spend it on nothing. And then there's going to be smart people like, I've been friends with REM for years, and first thing they did was give publishing to all 4 members of the band, their lawyer and their manager, because they knew that's where the money was. And they didn't want to fight, and they didn't want to, be angry at each other. And that's why they were around for a long time. A lot of other bands, did stuff like that. But how people are going to make money, it's unfortunately right now it's still going to be the people who figure out capitalism are going to probably make the most money. It would be great if things were more fair, and I would love to see certain artists that had never got their due be rewarded with a whole bunch of money, at the end. And I don't know if that made any sense, but I always remember there's a thing that, and this goes back to something I knew from REM. Back in, I think it was '85, they did a album where they did a bunch of B cuts and put it out, and they had 3 Velvet Underground songs on it. And Lou Reed called up one of them, I forget, I think it was Pete, and said, "I just want to thank you guys. I finally was able to buy a house." Because Lou Reed had worked as a typist in the early '70s for his dad, and he had never made any money. And he probably, that's one of the most influential bands ever. And I'm sure a lot of people made money because they aped him, including Jimmy Page. But, he didn't make any money. And near the end, he did make money. And so hopefully people like Lou Reed eventually make money. I don't know if that's a bummer to say or what.
Rick Sims from the Digits bought a house when the Offspring covered one of the Digit songs on that first record of theirs. It's the only real money Rick Sims ever made.
It's the easiest way to give money. I don't know if any of you guys know Keith Morris, but he's always had health issues, and
he's been on Protonic. I'm a huge fan. Keith Morris, Circle Jerks, Black Flag, incredible dude.
He went down to Ray Pettibone's house. Ray Pettibone said, "Dude, I'll never give you money, but if you get sick, you can come down here and grab 2 paintings." So
that is communitarian effort right there. That's the real power.
I think the future is bright. I just hope that music becomes again something that actually moves people, whether it's politically or, it has in the past actually made a difference, and I think it's probably the most underrated commodity in the entire world, because I don't know how people would get through life without music. And you go any place in the world and people are playing music, and you can go other places in the world and they could care less about Facebook or whatever Jeff Bezos is doing. So maybe those people should. What?
Well, Romero, what do you think the future of music is? The old man.
I think we're kind of, I guess we've always been at a crossroads, and I'm just waiting for that other lane to open up. But really, like, the thing that will fix music is that society at large stops requiring everyone to monetize every bit of their being in order to survive. I think that's the core, that's what it is, and you look there are places in Europe that are a little more forward thinking right now, where you can just be a musician and live on government stipends and stuff in order to survive. It's not perfect, but it's better than what we're doing. So I think that, if we can get to that point as a society, which is a much larger problem than the music industry itself, that would be awesome. People could just, do what I do. I just do music for fun. I work a job, which I have to do, but I want people to, like, at this point in my life and my career, like, I love that I can just make music, and I want people to get it for free. I don't want them to pay me for it. I don't care how they get it. I don't care if they're on Spotify. Whatever, just listen to it, enjoy it. Please, let me know if you like it. But I don't. That's the world I want to live in, where musicians can just be like, I'm just living my life and I'm just making music, and if people like it, that's awesome. If not, I'm not going homeless. And to me, that's the biggest thing. Otherwise, music's going to become the next NFT, and someone's going to turn it into, what these hedge funds are trying to do with it, and that's a horrible outcome. But I try to be optimistic. I still love making it, so I go that route.
And Conan, you'll have to be brief, because I have to get into the bonus patrons only after hours. Are you going to be joining us in the bonus patron only after hours?
Sure. Yeah, I would love to. Okay. So I'm in what is known as the upper lower class, like lower middle class of like working bands. And the fact that I do want people to buy the music when possible, but it's not the most important thing. Hearing is most important. Going back to one of your more original points of the essay, is people are more concerned about the making musical cues for commercials and things like that rather than making the great album. I make records, and I make them for what is an infinitesimally small audience if you think back to like the 90s and the Halcyon days or whatever, but a dedicated audience. It means a whole lot to a small amount of people, as opposed to meaning nearly nothing for a gigantic audience. So I'm fine with that. This is my lot in life. This is what I've chosen to do with my life. I dare say I'm pretty good at it, and there's a world for it. So that said, going back to the conceit of, and I said when I promoted the show that I was going to give a little bit of hope, because I think stuff's rough right now, especially like, with this whole like, hey, you're on Rogan's side or you're on Neil Young's side, and it's way more nuanced than that. Way longer than we have time to even discuss right now, clearly. But I will say that you have the ability to give direct support to artists you love right now through the only musical service that I can think of that is founded in fairness, which I heard from Chris Murphy of Sloan when I had him on, but it's also an RAM thing. RAM, Sloan, Fugazi, very rare echelon of bands that were communitarian and splitting equal shares, so on and so on. And I think that the thing that we need to remember is we have the ability to change things by choice and not be complicit in this horrible sharecropping that goes on. This horrible music is not just commodity, but devalued to the point that, as Catherine was saying, it's like being played at the parking lot of the grocery store and robbed of all its power until it's faded away into a gray, thin gruel. We have that power right now. And you can change it right now, and you probably should. Stunned in silence. Oh, okay.
I just want to say one thing.
Sorry, go, Catherine.
There's a hip hop group out of Chengdu, China, which is this huge city in a very remote area. They're called the Higher Brothers, and they feel it, man. You can find it. You can find them on YouTube. And my son turned me on to them. Music really does reach people and create these new experiences for people. And it's not that I don't have hope, and I do think that we need more social support for musicians. But there is musical experience, and there are frontiers of musical experience where for music has not been fully commodified by the U.S. imperial culture industry. So I just want to put a shout out to Mandarin hip hop group Higher Brothers out of Chengdu, China. So
you are always repping PRC.
I'm always repping the PRC. Yep, I am.
And that's how you do it,
They
right?
say there's so much censorship there, but why is there this hip hop group that's really successful, people?
So what Catherine just did, who has a platform, right, this is what all of us need to do. And this is what Jel Biafra talked about, become the media.
Mm-hmm. That's what I'm trying to do here, Conan.
I know you are. And you have done a fantastic job of it, my friend.
I want to thank everybody for joining us. I want to thank everybody for watching. I want to thank Pascual for not falling asleep. He's not happy.
I'm sorry I paraphrased your signature line. I just wanted to get it in while I still had a chance.
It's all right, man. It's not a problem.
Great.
And for
Thanks, folks.
joining us, Bill, are you going to be joining us in the bonus champagne room?
Sure, I'd love to.
Adam?
If you'll.
I've had my excitement for the night. I got to go have some vegan milk and get put to bed or taken for a walk. But you all have a great one.
Well,
Thanks,
I
Adam.
really appreciate listening to you all, and keep playing music.
Well, I'm going to keep making music for 5 people that want to hear a black dude yell and scream about a bunch of bullshit, and sometimes make smooth instrumentals.
You're gonna play though. You're gonna be rocking, or you all are continue talking?
He does both in equal measure.
As of right now, I'm sitting in the bedroom making a bunch of music because I have to. but ultimately, I would love to perform again. But this show takes up so much of my time, and I love doing it. And I love doing it with my lovely co-host.
Lovely.
Yes, lovely. You're
A man can be
Podcasts are the
lovely
new
too.
punk rock. Podcasts are the new punk rock.
Podcasts of the new punk rock? Wow. I got to really process that.
Yeah. Put that in your pipe and smoke it.
All right, everybody.
Punk rock was rebellious.
And we are out.